everyone tuning in. My name is Osley in Africa. I'm an intern with Kepra and senior at Shortridge High School. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm going to start off with a brief introduction of this event, and then we'll do an introduction of all our panelists, and then we're going to go into some questions, and feel free to ask us some questions, I believe, in the comments down below, and that's all. We're going to go ahead and get started, though. So once again, thanks for tuning in to Adapting to Pandemic Weekly Online, which is a town hall series brought to you by Alchemy, an initiative of the Kepler Institute focused on building community wealth. Alchemy is giving out $500 grants each week to an artist or entrepreneur as part of the LEAD support fund. This week, we have two winners, Reverend Shonda Nicole Gladden and Cassandra Avenatti. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So congratulations to you two. Woo! So Shonda is an entrepreneur, and her business is Good to the Soul. Good to the Soul is an emerged social enterprise that energizes individuals and institutions to flourish through coaching, consulting, and caring. Learn more about visiting their website, goodtothesoul.com. That's goodtothesoul.com. Cassandra is also an entrepreneur. Her business is Heartland Healing Counseling. She offers affirming psychotherapy. She's a therapist, educator, and activist with 12 years of experience serving as a clinician, organizer, educator, and advocate for LGBTQ+ individuals and partners, survivors of trauma, and other members of marginalized communities across a wide breadth of diagnoses. Learn more on her website at CassandraAvenattiCSW.com, and we'll make sure those get dropped down below so you guys can check them out. The LEAD Support Fund is made possible by our supporters. So far, we raised $2,700, which has allowed us to give out 5 grants so far. So just really quickly, I'd like to take a minute to thank our friends who donated this week. We have Anna Marie Kavlexley, Natalie Pipkin, Charles Hammond, Ron Gilbert, Gary Ryder, and Linda Broadfoot. Thank you guys so much again. So right now we're matching all donations up to $15,000 to support the LEAD Fund and start a new fund to help Indianapolis residents pay their bills. The matching support is made possible by a grant from the Central Indiana COVID-19 Community Economic Relief Fund. You can learn more about everything I just said at donate.kepra.org. That's donate.kepra.org, and we'll make sure it gets dropped down below so you guys can check it out. Now, I'd like to move on to introducing our panelists. We have, well, I'll let you guys go ahead and take it away. So, Sharita, we can start with you.
My name is Sharita Lacey. I am a long-term Indianapolis/Arizona native. I am a social entrepreneur. I started with Kepler Institute back in 2003, I think. And I am a homeschooling parent, suddenly. Can
you talk a little bit more, just real quick, about how you got involved with KI?
How did I get involved with KI? It was more spirit-led, you know. We were just brought together. I started doing surveys there, and then Rabbi Imhotep just saw that I had skills, and I started doing compliance and memberships for a rehab resource. That was our client at the time. We were developing Scarabus 1.0 as a turnaround consultancy. So I was being trained and developed as a social entrepreneur. It was my vehicle into transformation in my life, personally and professionally. And it was the catalyst for everything that I do now. I love them. They're my family.
Sweet, awesome, thank you. Now we can go on to you. Oh, you're muted still. Yeah.
Hello. I'm Natalie Pipkin. I am a mother of 2, wife of 1. I am a home educator, have been for the past 2 years. I'm the founder of the Pulse Project Indie, which is a community drumming initiative. And I'm just happy to be on the call today.
Sweet, thank you so much. Khalil, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Khalil Africa, long-time educator here in Indianapolis, board member for Kepler Institute. Anything else? Is that good?
Can you talk just a little bit about how you got involved with KI as well?
Yeah, like Lacey, who's also family. That's my family one. So I started as a young mentee of some of the core members. Ended up working in a greater capacity as a liaison with some of the young men. Opened the school up with the other founders of the center. So just part of my community family.
Great. Fantastic.
Oh, and also I'm a husband and a father as well of many, many children.
Okay, thank you. Deidre, yeah, you can go ahead.
Mute.
I believe you're muted right now.
Mute.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I do know how to work mute buttons usually, but my name is Deidre Fair James. I'm originally from Africa, but I was born in Detroit, lived half my life in Detroit, moved to Indianapolis when I was 9, and so I consider Indianapolis my hometown as well. I live in Washington D.C. now. I am a mother of 2 boys. Who you'll probably be here. One is down for a nap, fortunately. The other one, I'm sure you'll be hearing in the background.
Same here.
Yep.
One down for a nap.
Yep. And I am a new homeschooler in addition to my full-time day job, teleworking.
Great, thank you, sweet.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, more importantly, I'm a board member of Kepler Institute and have been a longtime supporter, and my mom is Paulette Fair, one of the forces of nature that works with KI.
Okay, thank you. Okay, guys, so we're going to go ahead and dive right into our first couple topics. And the first one, we want to talk a little bit about homeschooling. So I would like you all to just tell your stories with homeschooling, whether you're new to this or you've been doing it for a long time now. Just talk a little bit about it, maybe some of the ups and downs or favorite experiences or what that's like for you. Shruti, go ahead and kick it off again.
Okay. So I have been self-employed for a long time. And so because my work is involving in other people's homes, then I am not only homeschooling suddenly, but I'm also faced with not, working. And so when I was looking at, the experience of it for us, the first day that we did it was a real challenge. And I didn't care for it. I didn't like my attitude. I didn't like the way that it just was. I was trying to imitate school, and I'm not used to that. And so we did some other things like playing Monopoly on the Xbox for math, and which is big fun. My dear friend and our executive director, where I work also in my career shift into functional medicine, brought us a cash flow quadrant game, and we are playing that and learning those kinds of ways. I just liked it better by being together and through everyday life dynamic and doing very little of the pen and paper rigor and those kinds of traditional learning methods. It is confrontational for me emotionally because of all the expectations I have of myself as a parent. And my older children are adults now. And so my son is now 9. And the experience of him being alone and everyone having moved out and now having to be here every day. And it's just us and trying to teach him outside of the consistent regimen day to day that he's used to by being at school. And but then he's glad to be home because we were in a neighborhood school for the first time within IPS, and that is also new for me and very different. And the resources are very different than what I'm used to for kids in school. And so that's also disheartening. When you look at kids at school 70 and they can get their laptops right now. The kids at school 43 have to wait until next year, the packet didn't come until 3 weeks after, the beginning of the program, the school kicking in for the rest of the year, shortly after spring break. So those kinds of challenges for me, not having all of those community pieces in place like I used to when my own children were younger, are a big challenge in the face of not being able to really commingle with other people. We were just really settling into the neighborhood. KI's right down the street. We can't go there now. Being with family and friends and connected with other people is really restrictive. So all of those pieces that I would normally put in place, those community members that I would begin to put around my children to facilitate those different resources for them, begin to be, just me and him. And that's a real challenge as an entrepreneur who's used to being able to spend my days immersed in, working or doing what I need to do socially to promote and shift. And I was in the middle of a promotional campaign for a career shift. So it's been a real transformative experience for me emotionally as a parent to have to let go of all the things that I think and what it means to be a perfect parent. And so that I could create something else with him and just learn who he is. We get to spend so much time together, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. Natalie, you want to go ahead and take it next?
Yeah. So I was saying before, we are almost finishing our second year of being homeschooled, if you want to call it that. There's so many things you can call it. I've been home educating for the past 2 years. I think we're more self-directed learners, more unschoolers than anything, but I think it's really important that parents right now who have been thrown into this understand that all the feelings of anxiety or feelings of, panic are real, because it's really panic schooling that's happening if you weren't already originally doing it, and that's okay because nobody expected any of this to happen. But homeschooling is a choice, and it's a collaboration, and a lot of what Sharita was talking about was deschooling. And that's a process that we go through when we decide we want something different. And you can be in school right now and say, there's something about this I'm not feeling. And you can question a whole lot. What is he learning? What is he doing? How do I feel? How does it make me feel? How does this pressure on me affect my parenting on him? Those kind of questions that parents are having, that's deschooling happening. And through that, it sounds like Sharita's even considering I might actually want to homeschool, after this. Some may return back, which is another pressure because you're trying to keep up and make sure, all these different unknowns of is this going to happen in the fall, or are they going to be where they're supposed to be, or all these things. But homeschooling is definitely a collaboration and definitely a choice, and it definitely can be a choice. But right now, for parents who are in the situation where they have to bring school into home or teach at home or work with the teacher to figure out how to do this new thing during COVID-19, it's a great time to explore what homeschooling really is. A great time, like Sharita was saying, to explore relationships, how they really should be, how parenting and learning all go together. They're not separate. How we really are equipped for this if we want to do it, or if we have support and guidance and help of how to put this all together. But yeah, the only thing different for us right now is that what's different for people who haven't homeschooling originally is we can't go anywhere. We don't stay home. It's called homeschooling, but it's life. And we are missing that community wealth you all talk about. We're missing pottery class. We're missing chess. We're missing drumming. We're missing traveling. We're missing, apprenticeships. We're missing the museums. We're missing a lot. We're missing sewing at grandma's house. We're missing things that make homeschool complete. So this isn't just, hey, y'all, do what we do. This is not what we do. What we do is we learn everywhere we can, anywhere we can. Learning is happening all the time.
Yeah, no, I had some trouble unmuting myself, but no, that's very, very real. Yeah, it's very real. Khalil, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I just want to continue to listen to Natalie and Lacey because there's not much more to say. They are, and let me just say this for both of them. I know them and I know their children. And so, it's authentic and it's real, and they are very intentional, which helps me to my point I don't have much more to share relative to that, though. I agree. We've never been, my wife and I, we've never set out to be homeschoolers. We've always set out to just try to put our children in whatever situations were best to try to meet the needs at that particular time. So, and a lot of that is, there's an underpinning tied to our bigger worldview and philosophy just about systems and so forth. So that kind of drives that. But one fundamental thing I'll say is that in terms of the scope of your human, in terms of academic success, education is important, school is not. In fact, school doesn't even have to exist in the realm of education. And especially when, when you're in world or societal conditions that are not conducive to your development. So you have to be careful, number one, subscribing to schools, trying to teach your values and things because you lead your children down the road. Now, most importantly, when you do that, you get an opportunity, as the fundamental part about unschooling is that you're really just trying to meet the needs of your children. And I think that's what's important. Every moment is a teachable moment. So whether I am getting up in the morning, cracking eggs, like pancakes, pouring a bowl of cereal, we were walking down the street the other day and the stop sign, the light was counting down 11, 10, 9, 8. I have children that are 20. I have a range of 20 to 3-year-old. And so my 3-year-old is getting a chance just to walk down the street. And that's 50 million activities and things like that that are happening, just in life. That we just have to be able to help children connect to. So I say that I think education is about intentionality. And as I'm an educator, so I've met with hundreds of parents and mothers and fathers, and whether we're in school or not, there's always a sense of inadequacy that comes with parenting and teaching as well. And I've always tried to assure parents to say this is that despite anything, and I'm on the other side of it to a degree, Asli is my daughter. And though not perfect, I'm extremely proud of her success and where she is. And she's a product of unschooling and so forth. When you are intentional about it, whether you get it right or wrong or not, education is about the mistakes. It's about trial and error. It's about going in something and messing it all the way up and being able to say, okay, shoot, this is what we did wrong. What did we learn from this? How do we do it again? We have to get out of our minds trying to replicate what the oppressor's telling us what education is, trying to meet the needs and trying to pass tests and those things like that. That we're in real life, when you're out here in the world, matriculating through life, the last time I checked, yeah, you need the certain skills you learn in school, but those things come through a natural, organic process, trial and error and thinking about things and so forth, just real learning. I'm very appreciative of Corona, of the COVID-19, because what it's done is slowed the world down. And now that the world is slowed down, educators and people like us are getting a chance to really get a good sense about our children and the whole process as well. Last thing I say is this, in moments like this, these are opportunities that often feel there's a lot of disparity and things like that, but there's so much low-hanging fruit and opportunities for parents to know your children are home every single day. I just appreciate them knowing their safety. They are. I felt great about having 30 days to kind of calibrate brains and get, redo and kind of reconnect. And as Deidre's mother, Ms. Fair, shared this last thing I said, this gives parents an opportunity to really take back the education of their children in this moment. So that's how I share from that.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Next, I want to ask Deidre the same question. After that, we have a question that we just got that we're going to address, and then we'll move on to the next question. But Deidre, you can go ahead and take it off then.
Sure. It's tough. These are tough acts to follow because I think my co-panelists were really dropping some wisdom. And but I want to kind of riff off of one of the things that Khalil said in terms of making mistakes. I can start there. When school shutdown was coming, they sent my second grader home with, a folder this thick with a bunch of worksheets, math and reading worksheets and a science workbook and so forth. And being Paulette's daughter, for those of you who may know my mother, Paulette Fairs at KI, I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to get through all of these worksheets every day.
In that voice, and you had that voice too.
Yeah. It's like, I will work 10 hours a day because I have to work 10 hours. I mean, I'm working 10 hours a day anyway. I will work 10 hours a day. You will do these worksheets. I will check them. They will be good. Then we'll have your lesson plan for the next day. And I about killed myself. I mean, I was literally up until I was 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because I had to still get my work done. And the only time that between trying to check homework and sit down and do this worksheet and so forth. And my son likes to move a lot. And after I think the first 2 weeks, I said to my husband, I'm like, this is not going to work, at all. It's like, it was frustrating everybody, and it just wasn't sustainable, again, given my work schedule. And just a kind of quick background on me. I mean, I actually work for an agency that provides grant funding to developing countries for economic development. And needless to say, a lot of the countries that I work on, Ethiopia, Lesotho, they, although fortunately they have not been so far have been hit by the illness, the virus, but the economies are just, I mean, you think our economy is bad. When global trade slows down, a lot of these economies get hit even harder. And it's a matter of, if you don't work, you don't eat. And so, looking at how we are helping, the impact that our programs can have to help get people back to work, get people health care. So I also feel passionate that I do need to put in the work to make sure that that our partners in country are able to move forward. But as I was saying, it's long days both ways. So something had to give. And so in talking with my husband, we were, looking at kind of what are the basic things that, Gabriel, and I'll get on my other son as well, which is a whole different set of issues. But, what is he interested in? What does he need to learn? What did he need to learn? What are some of the things that we want to make sure that he continues to exercise that muscle, that learning muscle? And what does that combination of things look like? And so, we do have, we want to make sure that he stays sharp in terms of, his math skills. And so we can do math homework. I let him make his own story problems that usually have something to do with sports on a board, because I found that he's not just going to sit down for a couple hours a day and do a bunch of worksheets. He's not going to do that. So I had to buy some that white paper, wallpaper, and we actually sit at that. He sits there with the marker pen and he, works through his math homework. When he reads, we, ask him questions about what happened in the story. We let him read this kind of stories that he's interested in. There are quite a few free resources that we found, like our public library is offering, books online for free, because he's pretty much read everything, all the books that he has here. So just trying to find ways to, in terms of, for us, it was, we wanted him to keep the math muscle sharp. We wanted him to write something every day. So he's writing letters to families. Now I have to get stamps for that, but he writes a letter every day to somebody in the family or to a friend, and then reading and continuing to read. And then we also try and then, make sure that he's also continuing to learn about the things he's interested in. So he was very interested in the Burj Khalifa for some reason. I don't know why. So we watched videos on Burj Khalifa, and he wrote some things and had him do kind of a bar graph in terms of the tallest buildings in the world. And so really trying to lead, to have him lead how he wants to learn. I have a younger son who is 4, who has special needs. And I was frankly really intimidated at first in terms of he's, was a wonderful, sweet kid, but I knew that I couldn't just say, let me just do what you would do with a typically developing preschooler and call it a day. That my husband and I would need to go that extra effort in terms of making sure that his not only cognitive, but his physical and, occupational therapies. And I can't replace that team that's around him. But, fortunately we have weekly check-ins and they're helping, and it's helping for me to build my confidence in terms of what are the ways that we can, as Khalil was saying, every day, use that as a way to develop. So I've had him help me clean up, wipe the floor. He helps move things from the washer to the dryer. And his therapist was saying, actually, that's a good way for him to exercise those muscles. So I know I've been talking quite a while, but I'm saying as a person who, although I have, I'm a determined person in life, and I'm usually fairly confident in terms of whatever I do, but I have to admit, I approach this with a lot of trepidation now 2 months in, my confidence is slowly building. But one thing I always try to remember, even on the days where I feel like, you know, I'm still not, you know, doing enough to help my children, you know, be the best they can be. I try, as Khalil was saying, you know, to think, my mom was saying, look, this is actually a gift for you to have your children with you 24/7, and gives you an ability to not only make a connection with them, but also to be excited about their education, and not education in the schooling sense, but really their education, the person. And the last thing I'll say about it, I think with my 8-year-old, I may have ruined him for his history and social study classes, you know, whenever they do go back to school, because we talk a lot about, they talk a lot about, at least in his school system, Native Americans and social studies, the Native American tribes that live in this region. And so my husband and I have been like, let's tell you what really happened with Native Americans and so forth. And so now now that he's getting the lowdown, and, you know, what, you know, where this really comes from, it actually comes from Africa. So, you know, we hope that he'll be, you know, when he does go back to school, if he does go back to school, challenging the teacher, because his parents gave him a more fulsome education about these things, not just what they tell them in the history books. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. Natalie, I actually have a question for you. So, Deidre and my dad both mentioned creating learning with, you know, the environment around them, whether it's the street signs or helping straighten up around the house. So someone asked about the chart in your background, the Afri chart. So would you mind just talking a little bit about that for a second? Yeah.
This wonderful thing that I hunted down, that's how I found KI, was hunting this down. When we decided over 2 years ago, we were still in school, that we were going to come home, I knew that we weren't going to come home and teach some boring linear history, you know, inauthentic, out of order. And we knew that we were going to make sure they understood we were global people, and we have contributed from the beginning. And so I was looking for something that wasn't a timeline, that did connect us to the whole world. And I found AfriChart, and I was like, yes. And I didn't know it was created here, and that's how I, you know, got involved with KI. But it's a diagram, and can you see it? It's connecting African civilizations and the origins of African civilizations to the entire world. So I'm not just looking at African civilization and nothing else that happened during that time. I can look at 3250 BC and know what's happening all across the world, not just in one area, and everywhere across the world, and how we contributed to that. And this is something that needs to be not just everybody's home, but in everybody's school. So I don't know if you're going to talk about equity and Black Lives Matter. If you don't talk about Black lives being here from the beginning, if you dismiss it from the school classrooms, and you're not serious. The stuff's right here. You love KI, buy the AfriChart. You love Black lives, tell them about themselves. Tell them they've been here. Tell them what they've contributed. Diminishing our humanity and then crying when we get taken out like dogs. We have a responsibility, and it's right here in our face. If you want it, you can get it. If you care, and I'm talking about the government buildings, the libraries, schools, everybody, get the AfriChart. Tell the truth. That's reparations. Give us our truth back. Give us our history. Tell our children we're something. Don't forget that when we get back to normal, that some of that normal was harmful. So if you're going to go back into the schools, hold them accountable. Like you said, challenge these teachers and advocate for your children when they do, because if you challenge them, it can be some pushback, but we have some work to do when we get back to normal. Sorry, y'all.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much.
There?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
I want to chime in quickly.
Okay.
There's two of those charts.
Mm-hmm.
One has the world chart from an African perspective, and then there's the American chart from an African perspective. That hangs in my son's bedroom, and we are very proud in the city of that work. Yes.
Yeah, make sure you guys you guys can go on our website to get more information about our AfriChart products too. There are 2 charts, like Sharita said. But back to more about the topics. A lot of everyone already kind of mentioned their experiences with homeschooling because of the pandemic. You know, everyone is home. So this question doesn't necessarily have to be answered by everyone, but if anyone wants to answer it, please do. but I want you to talk a little bit more about the long-term impacts of this moment of education. And when I say moment of education, I mean this new, homeschooling, and not even be able to go to places like the museum or somebody's houses or anything like that to complete homeschooling. It's just like the long-term impacts of it. They wants to take it off.
Well, I'll jump in. I'll say that you hear the word reset a lot, so I think it's important that we are in
Gabriel, come on.
In every sector of society.
Gabriel, let's go.
We are resetting.
Do you want to start with the video?
Deidre, could you mute yourself?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. As you see, I'm trying to do math homework. I'm on the phone. So sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think the reset is important. And that being said, and just what Natalie said relative to the maps and utilizing education, holding teachers accountable and things like that. Again, you get an opportunity to go relearn your child's learning style and all that, and take new information and all that. So that's number one. But most importantly, I think we got to start looking at, and I'm just thinking about it from more of a logistics process. I think we have to start looking at more of a hybrid model of education, that it includes some face-to-face, some virtual, and then some large open space, kind of public kind of gatherings. The only thing that I think will really be different relative to this is that some people will really appreciate the opportunity to come home and not have to deal with some of the environmental toxins that they deal with in schools, and they'll come and formulate new processes as they do, as we go and try to recalibrate. So that's all I'll say about
it. If I can jump in on that, Asli. Although this should sound obvious, and I knew this, I think in my head, that I am my children's first teacher and best teacher. Well, my husband and I knew that here, but this experience is bringing it more here. And so even if we do go back to a formal schooling system, that taking with your child, taking charge of their education, and I mean that wholesomely, is still going to be a priority. Although they may, depending on the schools they go to, it may be a great school or they may have a good teacher or so forth, but at the end of the day, being involved and ensuring that your child is learning the things they need to learn, for them to be a successful human being, whatever that looks like, that, at least I know for my husband and I, is not going to change. And so, before the pandemic, when our kids were in school for most of the day, we would, of course, work on homework or do other types of exercises at the end of the day, or, sometimes on the weekend or so forth. But I think this sense of not only is it important in knowing that here, but also growing in confidence that you can do it. And I would say that for me, that's the kind of the biggest game changer. Although I am not a formally trained educator, but I am an educator. I am my children's educator.
I said, let me add one more thing to that as well. I teach on the campus and I teach pre-service teachers, and just, I guess, again, just from a logistics point and kind of some caveats that I've been thinking about, is that one thing we'll have as we go back to school, there will be some issues with work ethic. I think children are home. I think habits are forming, getting up late, eating junk food all day, watching TV. So it's going to be an acclimation process for getting students back into the mix as well. I think that Deidre spoke to this some, but I think there are some parents that are home struggling with children who may have some special abilities, or, as people say, special needs relative to meeting with therapists and all that. So I think initially in the schools, there are going to be some issues with behavior challenges. But on the flip side of that, I think what's going to happen, I was starting reading some of the DOE's recommendations. Smaller class sizes are coming, because especially for social distancing, I think that's important for behavior. Now that most importantly, I think there's going to be a resurgence, or not a resurgence, but finally understanding the importance of early childhood education, because we're going to have to there's going to be some hard conversations about some people's educational trajectory. For instance, you were a senior in high school, Ashley. You lost your whole, basically last semester of your senior year. There are some students who were in trouble with, there are some people who this process is almost cataclysmic relative to academic success. We're going to have to look at our education of the whole continuum and really start again and focusing on some of the needs and skill sets that we see are becoming apparent that we're missing. The lack of industry at home. Children are not home digging into e-learning because they're in there instinctively. They are sitting on the computer all day. We've not built industry in our children, and some of those values and characteristics that you build in early childhood will be more and more important as well as we move forward. So I think that's it now.
Yeah. Ashria or Natalie, do you guys want to say anything to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, they said a lot. Who knows what, the future is going to look like, but I do know that all that has happened now, it's a good time for parents to look and see whatever they were learning before, was that essential to what we needed right now?
Right.
This is a good time to do some essential learning, because this is not one of them, Mary had 3 apples and Johnny had 6 kind of moments. This is, can you grow an apple tree kind of moment. This is a, if A, B, and C don't work, what can you do? You know what I mean? This is a good time to talk real life, essential learning and understanding that keeping up that's doing what you did before is not beneficial to now. You know what I mean? A lot of it, in my opinion. So I think we should be thinking about how we can help our children, whether they're in school or out of school, to be leading their learning, so that no one has to force them to do this and force them to do that. That they say, I have desires, I have goals, I have interests, and I'm doing this for me. And that's my personal goal in my house, is that I don't have to oppress you at home so you can be fit to be oppressed in society. I'm going to free you at home so you can freely learn, freely do, and understand why you're doing it for you. You're not learning for me. You're not getting the grade for me. You're doing it for your life. And if everybody has that mindset, whether you're in school or out of school, you will be liberated, and you will guide your life appropriately. You'll behave or do whatever because you do it for you. You're not doing it just to get something done and get out and then not do anything once you get 18. You know what I mean? Like, just helping us all help our children lead their learning so that they're invested and they care, and there's not a bunch of pushback and pushing and oppressing. Just really real life. Like, love yourself enough to lead yourself into something great. Not for me, but for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm laughing because, my son is 9, but his siblings are all in their 20s. And so he's a very dynamic young man. I asked him the other day what he was thinking about, and he said, how to kill COVID-19. So it's like, what is the imagination? What happens in your imagination when you are formulating how you could solve that problem as a 9-year-old? And then I'm trying to ask him about adding numbers, and he's thinking about solution for pandemic. So it's for me, long-term awareness of being the way I'm being aware. It's just, I think long-term people are going to be very aware of how they show up with their children and then the impact on them. I asked him last night if he knew what insane meant. He said, yeah, it means crazy. And I asked him if he thought his brother was insane. So, and we have those kind of conversations. And even though we laugh, and it was funny, that's real though, because there are children that are dealing with, it says my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me? Yes? Good?
We can still hear you.
Yes? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I wasn't sure because I got an error message. So it's like a lot of this has been our emotional growth together as mother and son, and me really just being more aware of all of the conditions that I had set on myself as a parent, and the conditions that I had set on him as my son, and all of the meaning that I assigned to what his education was supposed to be like, and then letting all of that go. I think that a lot of people are going to be very aware of how they show up with their children long term, and building a better relationship with them, or a more connected relationship with them. And I think that really people are just going to be more aware of what works and what doesn't work, based on what school was like for them before. And I think that people's appreciation levels might go up long term for what they had access to before, that you maybe didn't think was valuable, that you really realized just how valuable it was when you didn't have all those people. You know, we could go to chess every Saturday, and to not be able to do that, like Natalie was saying, you know, all those, just the connection of touch. You know, he was the only person I could hug, you know, with him. And so I was very grateful for that. A lot of gratitude, I think, could come out long term. So I think that I really try to look at the emotional side of it, because that's where a lot of the treatment and the interaction, the emotional awareness that you have about how you show up. So long term, I think that will be a factor for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Yes.
I wanted to say something. We were talking about it. Can you hear me?
Oh. You're good. Yeah, you're fine.
Khalil mentioned something before about, and I think all mentioned it a little bit. We didn't talk about it long, about how some parents are struggling right now, and this is not ideal, and this is not working, and this is not safe for some kids, and it's not a beautiful experience or an awakening. And I think we need to definitely address that too, and know that how figure out those people are in your circle, how we can support those people. Those people can contact AI, and even if we can get some one-on-one talk or support for any parents who are truly struggling, that would be great. But also, even those who are kind of struggling, but we're joking a lot on Instagram and Facebook. I see a lot of jokes about, my child, send them back to school, send them back to this. It's funny if it's not, because you are sending them back to school, and that relationship you're showing with your child, you're showing the teacher how to treat your child. So when your child has an issue, who's going to advocate for them? You said you didn't want them. You said you're tired of them. You said they get on my nerves too. Who's going to advocate for them when they get back? And that's my biggest concern. It's funny till it's not funny. You kicking it with your people and it's on the internet, no, because everybody doesn't get the joke. And some of it's not a joke. Some people are struggling at home, and abuse is happening, things are happening because they didn't plan on this. That's not homeschooling, it's panic schooling. And so we need to really be careful with that too.
Yeah. Next, and this, I think we'll have time for a couple more questions to talk about. But I wanted to ask everyone about, so we talked about kind of like adapting to being at home and really doing homeschooling. But what do you guys think some of the changes a community can make to serve the new educational needs? So just outside of yourself, or what does that kind of look like? And anyone can take it first.
I want to go first. For me, what that would look like is access of a network. If this thing had to suddenly go virtual and we're all at home, who is homeschooling that is really great at certain things that can make themselves available virtually? Just the increase of the use of the technology so that we could be more connected with people who are really skilled educators and ask questions when we need to, and connect our children virtually together so that they have people to talk to, or being able to talk to their friends. For my son, it's very isolating. I have to be able to do a lot of administrative work for myself. And those times that he doesn't have anyone, it's a very lonely time for him. And so just ways that we can be more connected, that if we wanted to homeschool our children, or even if we were using, they still went back to school, but how can we keep them more connected to not just resources, but as a community of caring people? Like if the drumming that was happening on Saturdays, if that continued, one of the things that college judo teacher was, he had all the kids download duos. And then he does it with them every Saturday at 12:30 to maintain that connection. They can all see each other, and he does that right in the living room floor. Boy, if I had somebody that did that for math and reading, when it came to the technical part of it, because the patience and then the way they teach them now, I am completely disconnected with the way that they do that in school. My children are 25, 23, and 20. And so this grouping of 10, I don't get this stuff. So it's just for me to be able to have that virtual community that I knew I could tap into as a parent, to stay connected to people who were much better skilled at this than me. That could, when his teacher calls, those 30 minutes a day that she calls 4 days a week are precious to me. So that's what I would need personally as a parent. And I'm sure a lot of other people would benefit from that as well.
Yeah. Now, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are planning to stay in that school community that you're in, reach out to those other parents, because they're doing all these different schools, just like homeschoolers. Every home is different. Every school is different. So the parents that are at the school you're at, don't just rely on the teacher. If you can't talk to her, I would definitely reach out to the other parents. I think that the different schools, I don't know how connected the parents were, but it'd be a great time for the parents to get connected now if you're going to remain at those different schools, and talk to each other and get the help and the things you need as far as what's happening there. Now, as far as outside of school, if you want to continue learning at home outside of the school and do it on your own, there are a ton of resources. We have our website coming up June 1st. It's blackworldschoolers.com, and I'll make sure I send some information to KI. There'll be a world of resources to connect you to our children, to themselves and to each other. As far as drumming, we can't drum online because the sound doesn't do right. We would love to do that. We can't do that. But there are tons of ways we can stay connected if we can't get out anytime soon. But as far as resources, Sharita, I'll call you. But there are a bunch of resources we can connect to, and whether that's if you remain in school or if you don't, there's a ton of resources, and make sure we share those and do whatever we have to do. We definitely have some things up our sleeve, so definitely.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, and I'm looking for the launch of that website and those resources. And, and also I think the kind of emotional support is important as well. I, have a couple of very close girlfriends who I've been friends with 20 years here in DC, and we all have kids right around the same age. And one who I adore, she is an educator. I mean, she has a master's degree in psychology, and she is in her element with her son. And she talks about these elaborate lesson plans and all these things that she's doing. And then another good friend of mine who has twin boys who are the same age as my son, we call each other afterwards. We're like, okay, we're not gonna make her, I know she's not trying to make us feel bad, but we're like, okay, now we're just regular people, and we encourage each other and how we get through it. So sometimes just reaching out to my girlfriend who is, like myself, we're trying to figure out a way to make it work. We're not necessarily, these perfect, homeschooling moms like our friends, but we, touch base with each other, and we can be more vulnerable in terms of, hey, we just had to read a book, and I think we've done it. And I just can't today with no judgment. Whereas, like I said, our other friend, we were having a friend Zoom call, and she said something like, "Oh, today's Earth Day. Now make sure you put that in your lesson plan." And afterwards, I was like, "Lesson plan?" I was like, "I'm just trying to get paid." So I would say, as we reach out for that support in terms of skills in the community, to also, not forget that emotional part. Not, for the parents, of course, but I would also say for for the kids as well. It's helpful for them to make a connection. We're fortunate that one of the parents in Gabriel's class, who also happens to be one of the parents at the bus stop, so I know her. She's a elementary school teacher herself, and she hasn't been teaching because her husband is, just here temporarily before an overseas posting. And so she took it upon herself to reach out to the parents and say, at 10 o'clock every day, I'm going to be hosting a Zoom call. We'll read a book, we'll do experiments, so forth, for 45 minutes, please join. And so that's been a great way to kind of get to know the other parents, and for my son to be able to check in with his friends and feel less isolated. So I think doing those types of things where if they're, the group, even if the parents, can't volunteer to teach, but at least, them getting FaceTime with their friends and then talking about the things that they're doing. And sometimes they get motivated when they see their friends do cool things, and then they come and say, hey, I want to do that as well.
Yeah, that sounds great for reach out. Dad, do you want to say anything to that, or?
Yeah, I'll say one thing.
Before I speak to that, I wanted to co-sign on Deidre's point. There is an outstanding educator, right, with a psych degree. So she has a lesson plan. She sent me all of this stuff. We do Storyline online, which I do love, but she sent us like Epic, and she sent us like, oh my God, so many of these resources, and like her daughters do them all. So I totally feel that, but she's also super supportive. When I didn't have anything, it was because of her that I was able to have those access to those resources before, it kicked in through ITS. So I just wanted to send a shout out to my sister on that point. Thank you.
Pass those resources on, Sharita.
I promise to do that. I'll get your number from your mom.
Okay.
I wanted to mention something. Am I on there?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. We started this is something simple. Everybody didn't have access to internet and things like that. It's something fun to do, but we started a Storytime Hotline, the Black World School Storytime Hotline. So it's a 24-hour hotline. We have volunteers who read. We have like history, figure of the week. We have inspirational quote. So your kids can call in anytime, all day long, and hear a story. This week we have author and educator. Her name is Artika Tyner. Reading a book, but each week there's a new person volunteering, and you can volunteer too. So you can contact me for the volunteer to read. But the number is 1-844-950-1811. I'll say it one more time: 1-844-950-1811.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Dad, did you want to say a point, or did you want to say anything?
Sure. I just add one thing. I think whether pandemic or not, community serves best when it recognizes its assets, its strengths. And so I think especially in this moment now, and kind of linking the last question relative to what's coming in the future and so forth, I think there are some progressive communities that are really starting to take a closer look at the resources available. The talks of food shortage and those kinds of things make people become a little more a heightened sense of awareness relative to that. In this instance, communities serve families best by, I think there's a model here in our city we talked about before. It was the ABCD, asset-based community development model, where you go and you do some research about understanding who are members in your community. I think families would be served well in this moment in a quarantine environment by knowing your neighbors, knowing people in your community, knowing, regardless of what we think about people who we live with, how are we coalescing with those that are closest to us? And in a normal situation, we may or may not speak to our neighbors, but you never know if there's a grandmother or somebody who knows knitting or sewing or gardening or something, a house down from you. And so when communities know who they are, and that work really should be going on, sans pandemic, it should be going on daily so you have an understanding. I just know over where we are, just in our community, I stay close to members of CARPA. We borrowed everything from a hammer to eggs to use a truck. On the other side, there are people cutting each other's grass and those kinds of things. And everything I'm talking about are things, one, children can be involved in, and two, they also strengthen and build your entire structure, which helps alleviate some of the stress and some of the other things that parents experience, not just tied directly to educate your children, but providing an environment to educate your children. So that's all I say on that.
Okay, awesome, thanks. We're approaching 4 o'clock, so I want to give everyone just the opportunity to maybe make a closing statement. If you have anything else you want to share with everyone, like the storytelling thing or any resource you want to share, please go ahead and share that now too. And we can just start with Sharita, and then we'll go on to the next person.
I want to say something from a functional medicine perspective. It has been a nutritional transformation for me, not just during this time, but about 2 years ago when it began. And taking that son partly on my journey with me by things that I began to do for him made a big difference. A lot of these children, when you see them, if they have special needs or autistic, or they are going to school and they look angry, I would see them from the porch and I would speak to them. Good morning, little king. Good morning, little queen. And they'd be huffing and puffing on the way to school. And we would talk about this, and their brains are inflamed. You know, they have inflammation. They have nutritional deficiencies. So one of the biggest things that I would say during this time and moving forward that we can do, I mean, there's, you know, people right here on the line that were my inspiration back in the day. But for me to get consistently on the page took for me to get very, very compromised in my gut health. So gut health is very important. Knowing what's happening with your children's health, not just assuming that they can eat and process, you know, whatever, expecting them to be able to learn is going to require that you give them adequate nutrition that's healthy for their brain. And the more nutritionally we become, you know, as a community and help each other to have access to that nutrition, the better outcomes that we're going to have long term for our children. It's really huge. It's really important. I will post some of the resources. I work with holisticnutrition.com. I am a health coach with that organization, and I also advocate for parents to have Juice Plus. It's free for your children, and it gives you a big rainbow of healthy germs to get into yourself every day, and it helps to build up that microbiome in our tissue. The easiest way that families can make a simple change to add that to their day-to-day program as they become more competent and learn how to feed themselves better and have better access to nutrition. So that's the.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Natalie, closing thoughts or statements if you want to do any more plugs?
I wanted to recommend this book that a friend of mine actually wrote. Her name is Carrie Diggs. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's just she's been a home educator for 10 years. She was an educator before that. Making the Little Indigo House, that's the name of her homeschool. And it's called 33 Lessons I Learned. It's on Amazon or wherever else you get it. I think it's maybe about $10 where if someone wants to borrow it, who's on the line now, you can borrow it. But it's a quick read. It's like the home educator's Bible. It's everything you need, but excellent book. You can follow us on Instagram at Black World Schools for inspiration or for discussion. You can look forward to our website, blackworld.com. You can call the Storytime Hotline again. If you want to hear a story or if you want to volunteer to read, please contact me. And anything else? I think that's it. And like you're saying, if you want to talk or just guidance or some support, there's no perfect homeschooler, there's no perfect educator, no perfect school, no perfect teacher. So we all need support. So if you just want to reach out, I'm here to talk and support any kind of way I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dad, do you want to do a closing statement or a plug?
Yeah, I'll start here. And I know this is not the way you do this, but I want to try to share some words to try to alleviate, you know, parents who feel stressed about the process. And I just think about when I was teaching in the classroom, there was never a day I left teaching where I felt, woo, I did it. I taught them the best I could. Not one day ever. I taught for over 20 years and never. And there's not a teacher that feels like that. You never feel like you have did the best you do because it's a reflective process. You're constantly going, you're thinking about, oh, I could have did this better, no matter how much you plan, because you're constantly reacting in real time to children and things that happen. What I know for sure with adult children who, again, I don't nowhere near perfect, but all have surpassed every expectation we have. It is about intentionality. I remember working in construction 11, 12 hours a day, come home so tired. And honestly, I tell you, in a book, I said, listen, I'm gonna read one page out the book. So I'm just gonna read, and I would get through, if I got through one page. But see, learning is not about content, it's about connection. And this is important because relative to the brain, and this is the technical part about learning, when children experience a sequential process, when there are patterns, when they're used to repetition. So if I come every night at 9 o'clock and I sit down, I might be tired, and I open the book up, and I see it. There have been times where I didn't read what the words were on the book. I just made my own words up because I was too tired to go through that. There were times where I said, I'm gonna read one page tonight. And there were other times where I did a whole theatric presentation and all that every now and then. But the point is that I was intentional, and their mother and us as a family were intentional together every single day about trying to provide, whether we did it good or not. As we get older, your children get used to that process. And there are synapses that take place in the brain that make other connections in the body that help the learning process take place. So it was never about me teaching our children or providing them with every piece of information and knowledge they did. We didn't do it like that. We just felt like it was important that they knew that we were going to try every day to do it. And what we did is try to build the zeal for learning in them. And then they go out and figure everything else, and we support them. My point is that the learning is not in the success. The learning is in the process, and the process includes failure. But the failure is safe because it's intentional. Now, unless you have malicious intent or malintent, then you don't have an issue. You get up every single day, you do the best you can, you open eyes with your children about, I'm tired, my patience is low today, I may not be able to get this right today, because you are also modeling for them, how do I process through when I'm tired, when I'm frustrated, because children learn by modeling, by mimicking and imitating. And I will say this, my wife and I have experienced the greatest joys we've experienced have been tied to the success of our children. We have fumbled through the process immensely, but their success on the other side, as long as you are consistent, you do not give up, and just know that as long as you're not doing the best you can, that's not always realistic, but doing what you can is what's important.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a word. Thank you, Brother Van.
I almost just want to end right there.
Donate, donate, hit the donate button, Kemper.org. That's how you do. Donate, Kemper.org. That's what you do if you like it.
There you go.
But anything else, Deidre, you want to add on to that?
I can't. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Khalil. Just to say that every Sunday when we have our committee meetings, Khalil helps me get my mind right as well. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I will say last thing, if you do decide to order books online, please support, I'm sure there are a couple of Black bookstores. I don't know if they're in Indianapolis, but we have one in DC called Mahogany Books. You can order online. I think it's mahoganybooks.com. And they've got a pretty good selection of children's books as well. So if you're ordering books, please support Mahogany Books.
We have a logo.
Yes, awesome.
Orange, Brother Swat, it's orange. We have a local author that just came out with a children's book that we can support for sure too.
Yeah,
go ahead,
please,
baby.
Yeah, I was gonna say, drop all your resources at edu.kepler.org. I'm sure you just saw the chat, and it's a community engagement page that we have, just so we're all staying connected with resources. Make sure you drop those there so everyone can check those out. Yeah.
I want to say one thing in closing. I wanted to thank Kepra. Thank you, Ashley. You did a magnificent job.
Thank you.
To serve with these esteemed panelists. I love all three of you. I appreciate you very much. I've known Carly and Deidre for a long time, and I've appreciated getting to know you, Natalie, and who you've been to my son in this past year, knowing you. I want to say that this was a transformational experience for me, just in knowing I was going to be on this panel. This is real for parents, and I appreciate you guys putting this together. I was in breakdown, like crying, needing to clear myself. When I was talking to Keenan, and I had to clear myself because I was faced with all of the inadequacy, and that's why I gave the hallelujah when Khalil put that right there on the table, the inadequacy that you feel. So thank you for giving us a place as parents to talk about this issue and to really be real and to be raw and to share resources. You are much appreciated, and I love y'all so much.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. And thanks to everyone for tuning in to our weekly online. Yeah.
One last thing.
Yeah,
Support social enterprises. RGDfashions.com. RGDfashions.com. Support social enterprises, face masks, and everything else. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Good word, Papa.
Real quick, after this webinar ends, a survey is going to pop up for everyone, and we would appreciate it if you guys took a minute and just gave us some feedback, along with questions and ideas for future topics. And another window will also open our matching campaign, which ends next Monday. So if you're able to give any amount, that helps. Tune in next week for us to announce our next winner. And thanks everyone again. Please check out Kepler.org and donate.kepler.org for more information about the AFRI charts and everything else we talked about today. But that's it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks, everyone.
Everyone have a good one. Be safe.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Peace.